In the summer of 2015, Graham Hancock joined up with an Armenian research team headed by Vazgen and translator Sarah Noosh. Their aim was to host a tour for the common man of the country's many fascinating ancient sites. And with my dad and special lady, I was fortunate enough to join this tour, see a new area of needed excavation, and eavesdrop on some strange conversation. I'm Greg Carlwood, and this is the Higherside Tour.
How's it going, Higherside Chatters? I thought we might enjoy a little homage to the original THC theme song. Since this is a plus-only thing, I won't get dinged by YouTube or anything for using it. But alright, people, we know the mainstream marginalizes many of the artifacts, ancient sites, and really anything that suggests the official narrative of history should be altered in any way. And with the spotlight pretty much shining solely on Göbekli Tepe and the bordering country of Turkey, our guides thought it might be advantageous to look at some things that still remain off the radar in nearby Armenia. While we found nothing quite as impressive as Göbekli Tepe, we did see some remnants worth knowing about, and with Armenia being the first country on Earth to declare itself a Christian nation, we also got to tour some of the earliest erected cathedrals, which should of course also fascinate THC listeners for a multitude of reasons. That was an interesting time. So let's dive into some of the footage I was able to get, most of it quite random, and I'll walk you through some of the sites I got to see in the order that I happened to see them. Enjoy! The first ancient site we visited was called Karmir Blur, and there were some really old dates being thrown around for things. I heard 12,000 years several times, but I don't think anyone really knows, but this is what we got.
He went to them. They don't want to pay attention to this stone. They are excavating other things.
Okay. They don't want to have to change the history books. Man, it'd be great to dig down there and see how much more there might be.
It's a good site to excavate properly. These are interesting.
I can't imagine they haven't found pottery or something.
Right in the city too, right in the capital.
Yeah, but again, the problem is associating that with this phase.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that's the difficulty. It's really hard. And if you come at it with the reference frame of a mainstream archaeologist, you don't want to contemplate something being 12,000 years old and looking like this. That's actually why Göbekli Tepe got missed originally.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that story, but it was explored by American archaeologists in the 60s. And they saw the pillars, bits of the pillars sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
And they said, "Nah, this is modern."
Go there.
No, they said this. No, they said this is modern. This is a Byzantine cemetery. So we're not interested in excavating it. And they left it until Klaus Schmidt came along.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was their reference frame, saying good work has to be recent. There can't be any old good work.
Yeah.
They saw flints on the ground.
Yeah.
And that puzzled them a bit. But
That's an example of the paradigm blinding them.
it is
Totally blinded.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the paradigm, and that's the problem in archaeology. And the result is that areas which should be explored and excavated don't get explored because they say, well, we know there's no reason to look there.
The Earth is flat.
Yeah.
The Earth is flat. Yeah.
There was a voice of a previous THC guest you might remember named Matthew Cross who talked to us about the golden ratio. Of course, this trip is where I met him as well, and as we kind of climbed around examining the exposed ruins of some precisely cut stone of the ancient world, it didn't get too far into the day before comparisons to Egypt and speculations about alien involvement had to come into the conversation.
Its side lengths vary by as much as 7 inches. If you can navigate interstellar space, you're going to line perfectly to true north, and you're going to make the side lengths the same. So I see human workmanship, very good, out of context in its period, but I don't see the need for aliens. It's not that I'm against aliens.
No, okay.
I'm quite in favor of aliens, and I've met a few myself. But no, seriously. But I don't find anything in any. I've yet to find an archaeological site where I can look at it and say the only possible explanation is aliens. And that's my position on it, really.
Graham, I remember reading when John talked about that, Michelle talked about the fact that it was slightly off.
Yeah.
Allowed it to accommodate in reference both pi and phi.
Well, that's
Which is
it.
an
May
interesting
be a
angle.
deliberate error in the side lengths are slightly more harder to explain because they vary by about 7 inches,
Which is substantial.
It's substantial. Across a side length of 750 feet, 7 inches isn't much, but it's still an error.
But has it been proven that it's not due to that it has been a little bit moved by geological volcanic activity or earthquake?
That's ruled out.
Outbalanced.
You can really rule that out.
You rule it out.
Yeah.
That's not the reason.
Yeah, because the original socket corners are there. You can rule that out. But something else interesting though, it really is a problem, is many megalithic sites around the world. Manidra in Malta is aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. Okay, and you get inside Manidra, which is at least 5,000 years old. I think it may be older. You get inside it, you can see that summer solstice alignment. Bang! It shines up into a stone inside there. Now, what about plate tectonics? All the plates are supposed to be moving around at the rate of not much, half a centimeter a year. Take that over 5,000 years, you have a big movement. Why is it still perfectly aligned? That's what I understand. Why are these plates? Why are these alignments, which were good 5,000 years ago, still good today? If we have plate tectonics, maybe there's something wrong with plate tectonics.
Or they knew how to find the exact place and
where it doesn't move.
And they could predict due to their knowledge from this place will always be here.
Okay, that's a nice idea.
Yeah.
Almost like a gyroscopic thing. Yeah. Did they do that luminescence testing, Graham, on Göbekli?
No, they haven't done it.
They haven't done that. Would it be feasible or would it be logical? Is there a certain amount of time that it's exposed to light and then it
You
goes
would
away?
you would have to do it on an as yet unexcavated megalith,
So that's the
of
goal.
which we know there are a great many because the ground penetrating radar has seen them.
Got it.
You could tell when it was buried, but not built, I would assume.
Well, you can tell when it's buried pretty conclusively from the carbon dating because there's a lot of organic material in that fill, and the fill is not a sediment. It's put there by people.
Yeah.
It's rubble, and it's also got bones and other things in it which you can date.
Right.
So we can say definitely it was filled 11,600 years ago.
Wow.
How long before that were the megaliths there?
Yeah.
Or something.
Is that there was a technology that we don't use. I've seen this. Oddly enough, there's things like this on top of the and buried in the Akapana pyramid in Tiwanaku. Look exactly like this. And as a matter of fact, you see it in the Valley Temple at Giza as well. This cut into a corner.
The rounded off.
Yeah.
It's not just sharp edge,
They make
but the way it curves.
and that they make the corner of one piece.
And do we think there's an advantage in a rounded corner as opposed to a clear cut?
I don't know. Maybe it's just something they like to do. But you do find it. You do find it in quite a number of sites.
Here 12,000 and even more years before. That's why he thought the stone is belonged to this period.
Is it because you feel that it's a different style from the rest of the architecture around here?
Yes, he thinks because it's different from the one we have in this area.
Is there any way to like carve a date or anything like that, something like this?
You can't date stone.
Not like wood, right?
No, because you need organic material to do carbon dating. So what you could do is you could lift the stone
To see what's under it?
and see what's under it, but then you would have to do a lot of work to demonstrate that hadn't washed in under it in a later time. The possibility of intrusive younger carbon is a huge problem in dating stone monuments. There is a technique called thermoluminescence dating, but you need the stone that you're using to date that to have been in darkness since it was made. So it needs to be inside a building,
Right, or a cave or something.
and that building needs to be closed, and it needs never to have been opened since the time it was put there. Then light stored in the stone from the last time it was exposed to light can, by some astonishing nuclear technique, be measured. And this has recently produced some rather interesting dates from Giza in Egypt. But This one out in the open, there's nothing you can do with it. There's no way you could do it. So the only thing you could say is what Vazgen is saying is that stylistically it appears to be different from the rest of the other stuff. And then depending on your reference frame,
So you're kind of tracing the styles chronologically.
Yeah.
Why are we assuming it's older and not possibly younger?
That's a fair question.
Because
Ask him.
And this is the first good shot of our main local expert, Vazgen, who deserves a lot of credit for putting these places on even Graham's radar, as well as Seranush, who was an excellent guide and translator too. But this is how we got most of our information on the tour.
Because 8,000 years ago, this kind of stones were not existing, and so much accurately done.
But what about 1,000 years ago?
Asma at the pool is Khazar Dalarat?
Ես ուրիշ մեթոդներ եմ ասա ունեմ աշխատելու, դրա համար տենց խոսում եմ։ Ես կոնտակտորների հետ եմ աշխատում։ Այո, այո։
Ովքեր գնում են անցյալ տեսնում։
Այո, տրանսով գնում են։
Why he is so sure of what he is saying? Because he had other methods as well. He has contactors who can go back and see what happens in the past and again come to the present.
So some kind of remote viewing.
Yeah. That's why he is so sure of what he's saying.
So this is all very cool to me. I'm on my first trip outside of the country. I'm seeing some stones that are obviously cut by man and very old. But what is this place? What are you looking at? Well, it's the rubble from some type of fortified settlement in the past, because these rock walls formed a perimeter around something at one point. It obviously doesn't look like much now, but imagine what could be found if the entire complex was properly excavated. There have been some preliminary digs that turned up some stone tools and pottery, but apparently they didn't go too deep. Here's a couple of pictures of the things they've unearthed from what I can find. And an interesting side note here, at one point in this trip, I asked Graham how he felt about these stories of giant skeletons, and he told me that he finds them a bit far-fetched and is more interested in giant ideas than giant humans. Now, our tour guide Vazgen was a lot more enthusiastic about giants, saying that several had been dug up in the area. We'll get into that a tad bit more later, but one of the most interesting pictures from the shallow dig they did here is this one. Now, it's hard to get a true scale on this skeleton because of the way it's positioned, but it does look a little big, if you ask me. A worthy first stop, I'd say.
So they start building the temple from the 5th century and finish it only in the 7th. And it doesn't belong to Armenian Apostolic Church. Because, Armenian Church is apostolic, because the apostles spread Christianity, but it doesn't belong to Apostolic Church.
And this is why it's called a temple, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And still now Apostolic Church doesn't accept this one.
But
as
it
a
is
church.
Christian.
That's Christianakana. Yes.
Ուրեմն ինքը մինչև կառուցումը ստեղ եղել է ուրիշ տաճար, որը կոչվել է Տիրի տաճար։
Before the construction of this one, here was another temple which was called the Temple to Tir, or the Temple of Tir.
Տիրը Հերմեսը, Թոթը նույնն են։
Tir was one of our gods, is the same Hermes, is the same Thoth.
Okay.
Գիտության եւ գրության։
This is the god of education and knowledge.
Ինքը ամբողջ դիեզերքի ուրեմն թվաբանությունը իր մեջ է։
All the numeration of universe you may find in this particular temple.
Որը մինչև հիմա բացահայտված չի մարդկանց կողմից։
This is still not uncovered by people, but humans. It's still secret information.
Մենք բոլոր համակարգները բացել ենք, շուտով հայտարարություն կանենք։
They opened all the systems here and շուտով ինչ նկատի ունեք?
Շուտով հայտարարենք, տարբեր գիտնականների խմբի կողմից։
And soon they will announce about this and they cooperate also with other groups of scientists as well.
Հիմա ուրեմն այս 7 աստիճանը
You may see here 7 stairs leading to the up.
Մեր մոտ կոչվում է 7-րդ երկինք։
And in Armenia it is called 7th heaven.
7-րդ երկինքը ամենաբարձր երկինքն է։
Seventh heaven is the highest point of the heaven. It is like the roof of the heaven.
Այսինքն ինքը ինչքան մենք հասկանում ենք, հետո հասկացանք էկվատորն է։
We have this expression in English. I was in seventh heaven.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
In Italian too.
In any case, 7 is esoteric.
Yes.
7 chakras.
And
Top chakras.
7 heaven is the same նույն էկվատորն է. This is the same as equator.
Մենք 12 թվին հասկացանք, որ էկվատորին գալիս է Օրիոնը, այսինքն ժամանակը վերջանում է այդ էկվատորի վրա։
2012-ին.
12-ին հասկացանք։
In 2012 they understand that the time ends on this equator. Գնանք են հովիտակ. Let's go up to stay under the shadow. On the column you may see the symbols. This is symbolizing Tarsion fields. Going to left and right, like a bioenergies.
Եվ դրանից առաջանում է երրորդը, այդ մեջտեղը կա։
And from this two, the one in the middle appears. You see the
Այդ երրորդը
circle
որ
in the
չլինի,
middle.
մենք չենք կլինի։
And if the third one will miss, we will not exist. We are like, yes, we will not exist.
Մենք ուրեմն տեզերքի հետ ուրեմն հաղորդակցվում ենք մեր կրիստալիզացիան, այստեղ 144 ռեշոտ կա այստեղ։
Մենք եզերքի հետ հաղորդակցվում ենք
Այո, դոդեկահեդրայով։
We are communicating with the universe with dodecahedron, you know, it is
Dodecahedron.
Yes, this is the
144 ռեշոտ կա։
It has 144 lattice.
Անկյունն էլ 144 է։
And the angle is 144 of this the dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron.
Yes, dodecahedron.
Իրա հայլեանմանը 144-ի 441-ն է։
Հայլյանն թարսը.
Հա, էլ։
If you read it from the back side, it will be 441.
Որը բանի լանոտան առաջի օկտավայի։
Which is the note La of the first octave.
Այսինքն կամերտոնն է հիմնարար կոնստանտը երաշտալած։
It means it is a Karmir like the constant for checking other musical instruments.
Հիմա եթե այդ համեմատությունը ճիշտ կատարի գիտությունը, մեր գիտությունը լրիվ փոքր է, ֆունդամենտալ լրիվ բան։
If it will take this as a base, the all science will be changed. Everything will be changed according to this number.
Օրինակ մարդկանց դեղ պետք չի լինի խմելով։
For example, humans will not need any medicine. They can be cured only by herbs.
What's the 144? Where's that encoded? Sorry, I didn't get that.
144-ի ժամանակ ստե չի եղել, չհասկացավ ինչ էինք ասում։
144 ասա դոդեկահեդրայի անկյունների եւ
You know what is dodecahedron?
Kristallический решетка.
Oh, it's the angle of the side of
Yeah.
a vertex of a dodecahedron. Okay,
The number of.
Yep. Good.
So this place has a resonance to it, I suppose. Yeah, that's something that's come up on the show so much, is that sound seems to be something that's kind
healing.
of
Also, it seems healing powers of the sound.
Yeah, it's kind of been quarantined from our modern science, but this might have been some type of ritual space for healing.
You see here, it reminds of key. It's considered to be the key to the universe. But it should be not in this way, because actually
Չէ, ինքը այսինքն բանավին դրեցի, ասես որ բացեցի, ինքը բացեցի, ինքը արևմուտքն է։
If you put a key and if you turn it in order to open it, you may appear to the altar place. This is a west.
So it means that it's closed.
I think ցույց տալի որ փակա բանալի է։
Հա, փակա, մարդը գաղտնիքը որ բացի եւ բացելը էսա, այսինքն արևելյան։
Yes, it is closed, and if humans will open the secret, it will turn to the place where altar is now standing.
Մենք ասա գործիքներով չափագրումներ ենք արել, ու զարմացել ենք, որովհետեւ ինքը աշխատում է, էլի ստեն կենտրոնացում է էներգիաների շատ ուժեղացնում։
And they work with some measurements, with some tools, techniques, and they had researches here, and they found out that the centralization of the energy is too strong in this part.
Yes. You know, it's one of those things you gotta do yourself because you're like.
Yes. This is two.
Definitely
Don't move though, your body.
Pillars are basalt, the ground stone.
How does it feel?
It shows you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You are the energy.
I'm the energy.
You feel that moving?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we're here at this place. What's so interesting about it is there's 7 steps up to this sacred space. 7 chakras, when you climb the 7 stairs, you reach this holy place, which you can see from the videos. There's places where the energy definitely seems to be strong and concentrated in that pit area. There's an altar. Also, 441 is coded in the structure here, which is of course the reverse of 144, which is of course 144 hertz. They talk about having healing properties. So potentially this could have been a place of healing in the past, and it kind of jives symbolically with enlightenment. 7 chakras, 7 steps up to the sacred space. I think this place is pretty awesome. Zvartnots. So I would consider this one of the most impressive sites on the tour. Here I wanted to give you a first-person perspective to show the alignment right up to the little chamber here and then down over into the pit where the altar is. We hear a lot about symbolism and sacred geometry encoded into ancient sites and pyramids all around the world, so it was cool to visit something like that. Was this a healing center or a psychedelic experience simulator at one point? It is hard to know, but if you caught it in the beginning, they refer to this as a Christian temple now, but it was originally called the Temple of Theed, I believe is the pronunciation I heard, but Vazgen said that that's their name for Hermes, or Thoth. And that's pretty damn interesting, right? A relatively empty and under-discussed Temple of Hermes right out here in Armenia. But with all this talk about resonance, I really wanted to hear something, and lucky for me, the tour did arrange for us to hear some very talented and traditional singers in this temple. Great stuff. And as awesome as this place was, there was also one other thing that Matthew and I had to try before getting back on that bus.
Hurry.
Yeah, let me should I give you my
We'll be there. 2 minutes.
Give you my
2 minutes.
Wow.
I think we're going to do both angles.
Cool. This is it. Who knows how many bodies have been burned in here?
We on an ultralight beam, we on an ultralight beam. This is a God dream, this is a God dream, this is everything.
So, here if you look attentively, you may notice that different parts of the building belong to different periods. For example, this tomb dates back to the 3rd millennium BC.
Externally տեսնանք 40000 տարի առաջվա արտիֆակտ,
And even here you may see the artifacts 40,000 years old. 40. And even older. In fact, it is called Sun Cross. It is the same swastika. Here.
So the swastika in this instance, which period does it represent?
3rd millennium BC.
Oh, that's the older one. Okay. And what does it actually mean to them? Do we know?
Իհարկե, որտեվ բանը, այդ սվաստիկան մենք սխալ ենք հասկանում, ինքը այդ նուրբ էներգիաների նշանն է, աճ եւ ձախ։
In fact, the specialists could not understand when they tried to read what is written and as well as swastika, and they understand the meaning of swastika in the wrong way. Mr. Vazgen says that swastika is the symbol of very accurate energies.
Աճը ուրեմն, կենսա ուժերի է, եթե աճը։
Right side, right hand is for bioenergy, and
left
hand is for information. Okay, now you may come inside. Just be careful. It's low for your hand. So we cannot say exact date when it was, so how many people were buried here, because almost 80 years before the people used it as dwellings, not for the purpose of tombstone.
So before that it was a tombstone?
Yes.
So what happened to the skeleton?
So, about the skeleton, they were not found here, but skeleton were found another part of this territory. And I asked why you are sure that it was a tombstone. He said because the entrances of tombstones were like this. Yeah. In the village, this part was called the homes of giants. I asked why it is called the house of giants. He said probably they think that this kind of buildings can be built only by giants. The other part where we are going to visit after this, the second part of Agarak or settlement, tombstones are much better preserved, more accurately done. You may see the tombstones there already. One more interesting event, so when they were here with their friends, when they took photos, videos here, when they went back and watched all the things, they have photos, videos, all of a sudden they saw they were moving some flying objects. It's almost 15 years that they are watching these flying objects in Datev. We are going to visit there. He said that he was even talking to them. He has contactors who are communicating with these objects.
What form or shape do they take?
They look different. If we were lucky enough, we can see them in Datev. We will see.
Yin-yang, plus minus,
Energy plus minus darstellen. This is plus and minus of energy. There, yes. There is a zero. There is a harmony. It works too strong. So you may stand here almost 1 minute and it will work on you. You will feel the difference.
Wow. So, spoiler alert, we didn't see any UFOs at Tatev, which is a monastery we get to later. But how amazing, right? We have an ancient pre-World War II swastika in this remote area, apparently areas of high concentrations of energy, references to giants, a nearby UFO. This seems to really jive with what's said about paranormal activity in sacred spaces even decades after they've been relatively abandoned. I don't know if everything translates quite as well to my shaky video, but it is an impressive place.
So now we are already in Garni Temple. So the temple is a little bit far because besides the Garni Temple here we also have several important things, such as this stone. This stone is considered to be the birth certificate of Garni Temple because before founding the stone, there were contradictory datings about the temple between historians. Some of historians said that the temple dates back to the 3rd, some other 4th, 1st century. But at last, when in the 1950s, the stone was founded by great Armenian painter Martiros Saryan. By the way, all of a sudden, it was in the cemetery and he was sitting on it. Just he noticed that there is written something important in Greek. But people didn't know what was this, and they put cross and turned it to gravestone. So the stone dates back to the 1st century, and we start using cross from the 4th century. Imagine, 3 centuries it was lost. So there is written in Greek that that the first, the son of Mitra, built the temple dedicated to son Mitra on the 11th year of my rule. It is around the mid of 1st century. So at last we know that it belonged to the 1st century, the temple. But the prototype of the temple was already existing from the 3rd to 2nd centuries BC, built by Urartian kings here. Because the fortress, the territorial fortress, was conquered for the first time by Urartian king Argishti I. Okay, as it's sunny here, let's move. I will continue already under the shadow. Let's go. Besides the temple, here we have also the church. And this is the only pagan temple. Why it remains still now? Because when we adopted Christianity, Gregory and our King Theodat went throughout the country and destroyed all the pagan temples existing and built churches instead of them. This is an exception. It is said that the sister of Theodat, Khosrow, asked her brother not to destroy the temple and keep it as a summer house for the royal family. That's why after the temple also we have the ruins of the buildings. There is a summer residence of the royal family. There's also the part for keeping horses, dineries, their rooms, etc. But we need to have church, of course, and next to it you may see the ruins of the church St. Sion. You remember I told the last severe earthquake here was in 1679. The church as well as the Garni Temple was completely destroyed. And at the beginning of 20th century, everything here was covered by the earth. Afterwards, the excavation started here. And because 50% of the stone of Garni Temple is new, that's why it's not considered to be UNESCO's World Heritage Site. It is just under protection of UNESCO, okay? And also you may see that it is surrounded by 24 columns. 24 columns are symbolizing 24 hours of a day. So, and also besides the temple we have also an interesting place. It's a royal bathhouse. I have the key. You see the mosaic floor in the history museum, but let's go to see the bathhouse now. Okay, let's go. This is the mosaic floor of the dressing room, and here it is made of 50 colors of stone. There are 50 colors. And there is a god of sea, god of ocean, and above there is an inscription: we work and get nothing. They were probably states here. And the small part of the bathhouse, it is said to be for milk baths for the members of the royal family.
So the Garni Temple complex compound was another one of my favorite places on the tour, mainly because I've never seen a first century pagan temple before. And like Sarah Noosh said, many of these temples were destroyed or converted, not just in Armenia, but everywhere. So only out of the royal family's greed and need for a summer home is it even still here. And the ancient Roman bathhouse, of course, is just icing on the cake. Another first, I gotta say. You can tell it's not in the best shape today, but there's still some areas of impressive detail that I think are worth seeing.
You may see when after the restoration, you may see the stones from the 1st century and stones, new one. Yes. Let's go. Here was already the part where the worship took place, and here in the middle was standing the statue to Mitra. After Christianity, they took it away, but I would like to mention that still in the territory of Armenia we have pagan Armenians. There are like 1% only. But still we have pagan worshippers here.
And they worship Mitra.
Not only Mitra, we have different gods. God is Mitra is the god of sun. We have god of education, God of fertility, God of motherhood, love, etc. Education is fun.
I got guns in my head and they won't go. Spirits in my head and they won't go.
Geghard Monastery, another personal favorite, and it's actually called that because Geghard is the Armenian word for spear, and the legend is that this monastery originally housed the spear that stabbed Jesus on the cross. And regardless of how you feel about that particular possibility, it does speak to the age and importance of the place. Also, many Armenians consider this monastery to be the most spiritual structure they have. And when I think about ancient spirituality, I think of something way more in tune with altered states of consciousness, magical ritual, and real spirit experiences, not the empty, shallow remnants we call religions today. And so in a lot of ways, this place felt like a time capsule for me. Not only do we have intricate symbols and sacred geometry carved into the walls, but you also see several areas designed to catch precise sun ray alignments and a natural spring built right into the architecture and routed straight through the floor. You also see intricate carvings of animals that apparently allude to the zodiac, I'm told, and all this carved into solid pieces without any mistakes. It really was just super impressive and one of the oldest and most spiritual structures I've ever been in. At one point, one of our guides talked about how this was originally built as a tribute to the elements, and so the sunbeams and the carved-out healing pool that the spring water pours into before it runs through the building start to make a little bit more sense in that context. Of course, we wanted to drink right from the teat ourselves for the full experience, and it was as cold and fresh-tasting as anything you could ever want. And whether there's anything healing about it or not, I definitely didn't think it would hurt to fill up the tank for the road. And the inner chamber, the main room, was built specifically to produce optimum acoustics. And this again touches on the idea of chanting, resonance, and altered states. But our timing couldn't have been any better because we got to hear singers in that chamber so powerful that they brought several people in the room to tears. But I thought it was an amazing place that just felt intelligently constructed, fairly undisturbed, and highly charged. But I will shut up and let these singers try to get you there. Powerful stuff. And out in front of the monastery, there was a row of vendors, and one of those vendors would let you release a dove for $1. And I couldn't resist the temptation to throw that footage in there. But all joking aside, that was one of the most energetically potent performances I've ever witnessed. And that, folks, is Geghard Monastery.